Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Bex. I'm on the events team here at Books Are Magic, and we're so excited to have you all here to celebrate the release of Upcountry with Chinsun and Chelsea. Before we get into that, I just have a few housekeeping things to point out. Towards the end, we will be doing a hand-raised Q&A with the audience, so think of your questions, hold them tight. We will get them answered. After the talk, Chinsun will be signing and personalizing books. At the back near where you checked in, we will let you know where and when to line up for that. And if you're joining with us virtually in the YouTube live stream, we'd encourage you to buy a copy of the book. You can do it in the live stream description. If you're here, we encourage you to buy copies of the book. We've also got Chelsea's book. We don't want to reshelve these books. Go buy them. So about Upcountry, it follows a middle-class ex-Manhattanite, a cash-strapped single mother, and a young member of an obscure religious sect who become entangled in a Catskills town. It was described by Kirkus Reviews as an engrossing, quietly original take on what women must do to survive in 21st century small-town America. Chinsun Lee, our star of the show tonight, is the youngest child of North Korean exiles. After a long career in fashion design, she earned an MFA in creative writing at the New School. Her work has appeared in many publications, including The Rumpus and Joyland, and she was also a contributor to the New York Times bestselling anthology Women in Clothes. She currently lives in New Orleans, working on her second novel. Chelsea G. Summers, our conversation partner tonight, is a former academic and college professor with a PhD training in 18th century British literature. Her work has also appeared in many publications, including New York Magazine, Vogue, and The Guardian. She splits her time between New York and Stockholm. A Certain Hunger is her first novel, which, again, we have. Now, without any further delay, please join me in welcoming Chinsun and Chelsea.
Thank you for choosing me to be your partner. Can everybody hear? We cool? All right, excellent.
Thank you for agreeing. Okay, everyone can hear me too? All right.
I really enjoyed reading this book because it brought something really new and different to the way that I think about novel writing in a few different ways. To begin with, you have chosen to tell the story through the intersecting lives of three women who are all very, very different in terms of race, in terms of class, in terms of education, in terms of religion, and world experience. They're all like completely different lenses. And April and Claire are both white women in their 40s, while Anna is a much younger Chinese Korean immigrant, or a child of, no, she was adopted from Korea. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm curious, what drew you to these three characters? What put them in your head?
Thank you for that very simple question, Chelsea. Well, first of all, and thanks to Books Are Magic, and obviously I'm so thrilled that you are agreeing to do this conversation with me, and thank you, all of you who are here in person and I guess virtually in the audience as well. So I knew that I definitely wanted to write about women, particularly women in midlife, as I was when I was writing it and am, perhaps a little bit more advanced even than that. So initially, I think Claire was my first character that spoke to me because, frankly, just to backtrack a little and give it a bit of context, I was staying in the Catskills at a house of a friend of mine. His parents actually offered me this guest house for free, which was amazing. And I was very entranced by the whole milieu of the Catskills. And someone in that community actually was very much like a Claire type of personality. She was a little bit prickly. Not someone that I would probably personally want to befriend, but I found her character, that the idea of like a sort of unlikable woman, to be an interesting character, because in fiction, I don't mind delving into, negative aspects of a personality, whereas in real life, like, nah, I've moved on.
Well, I'm just going to stop you right
Yeah.
there. None of them are likable.
Really?
I mean, like, I didn't really, not initially. Like, I think that there is a thing where, to me, like, initially, I think that one of the things that the book does is develop a sense of compassion and understanding and a greater, like, as a reader, you become a greater friendship, a greater friend, you develop a greater friendship with these three women as they interact.
Yeah.
Like
That's so
like
funny.
initially, we have Claire, who's this prickly transplant from Manhattan, who is a lawyer. We have April, who is sort of a towny, house cleaner, like is like a little bit on the edges and is deeply resentful because her house has been purchased by Claire. And then we have Anna, who is a member of this weird religious sect, and they wear like little homespun sewn dresses and have to like move slowly and be demure, none of which is my bag.
Okay.
And,
but
so it was really interesting for me to like overcome my initial my initial attraction, repulsion as the story unfolds. So how did that work for you?
So that's interesting that you found them all slightly unpalatable. For me, it was really, Claire was kind of the prickly one, and then I actually really like April. I think she is really honest and kind of no bullshit, actually. And the two of them, the white protagonists who are older, they're almost polar opposites in terms of class. Like Claire is privileged. She was a Manhattan attorney. April is, as you said, a townie. She does not have a lot of money. She's a single mother of 3 children from 2 different fathers. So they were probably the first 2 that I focused on. But then Anna came in later as a much younger protagonist, and I just wanted to represent women going through different phases of womanhood. And Anna is incredibly unworldly and naive, as opposed to, the other 2 protagonists who are naturally older and just more experienced. But yeah, I like April. Sorry.
No. I came to really like her eventually.
Yeah.
But like you, why don't you read that little snippet, and we'll get a sense.
We'll see if you guys.
We'll get a sense of their relationship.
Okay. All right. Let me find my little space. 1 second. Need the glasses. All right, I'm going to read, this is just a really short section in the early part of the book, and it kind of shows the dynamic between Claire and April. Mackeys Grill was a pub in Hudson, just 2 blocks away from the train station, which made it a popular stop for commuters and locals alike. Most Friday nights it was packed, and tonight was no different. All the tables were occupied, and even the bar was full up. April had gotten there early enough to snag a stool. She changed her outfit at the last house she cleaned for the day and did her hair and makeup in the truck. Checking herself in the bar mirror, she thought she looked pretty good. Her blonde hair was moosed and tousled, her eyes smudged and sexy. She wore her best skinny jeans, and her black tank top showed just enough cleavage. She hadn't had a Friday off in over a month and was ready for a good time. This plan got hijacked when Cliff, another regular, slid onto the stool next to her. Oh, Christ, she thought. He was a slack-bellied man in his late 50s who wore the same wrinkled suit each time she saw him. He lived in Yonkers, but worked at an accounting firm nearby, and he always bought her rounds and offered to do her taxes for free. He was mostly harmless, never pushed that hard, and was occasionally funny, so she let him put her beers on his tab while she looked around for better prospects. After the first beer, she didn't mind his company so much. By the third, she was bored as fuck and desperate to get rid of him. She scanned the place, which now was so crowded it was hard to even tell who was attractive. The last time she was there, she flirted with an electrician named Doug, letting him get a little handsy at the bar. She might have gone home with him, except her daughter Cara called to say she was sick and throwing up. April had hoped he might be back tonight, but no luck. And then, by the door, she saw the woman who'd bought her home, Claire. She looked tired and irritable, her eyes seeming dazed as they took in the room. Well, what do you know, April thought. She stood abruptly and told Cliff, "Hey, save my seat. I see someone I know." As she squeezed through the crowd, teetering slightly in her heels, she welcomed the tipsy buzz that went with her. Claire was looking in the opposite direction when April bumped into her hard. "Told you I'd see you again." Claire yelped and whirled around. After a frozen second, she sputtered, "You!" "Jesus, your face," April said, laughing. "You look like you're about to piss." "It's not funny," Claire said. "You really scared me." "That's what I meant to do. What are you doing here? Why are we always running into each other?" She suddenly found the whole situation hilarious. "I'm waiting for my husband." "You're always waiting on him." "Have a drink meantime." She grabbed Claire by the arm and pulled her toward the bar. "Cliff, scoot off and let my friend here sit. Come on, be a sport." He didn't look happy about it, but said, "Sure." For a few minutes, he tried to talk to April with Claire in between them. Finally, he turned to the woman on his other side. April leaned into Claire and whispered, "Phew, thought I'd never get rid of him." "Oh," Claire said. "I thought at first you were together." "What?" April said, taken aback and offended. "Please. If he wants to buy me a beer, fine. But otherwise, the day I'm that desperate, shoot me. I'm good on my own with my kids, thanks." "Where are they now?" Claire asked. April shrugged. "At home. Maddie can watch them for a while. Gives me a chance to have a life too, which doesn't mean hanging out with him all night," she said, jabbing her thumb in Cliff's direction. "I see." Claire reached for one of the laminated menus on the bar and began to look it over. "Glad I could be useful." April squinted, unsure if she was being sarcastic. "Yeah, well, you got a seat, right? Worked out for us both. Your husband might have to stand, though, unless I take off. I might. I don't know. It's kind of early." "Sebastian won't stay. I left him a message to pick me up, and I'm just waiting to hear back. We'll leave once he gets here." April was relieved to hear it. When she met him at her house, she thought he was kind of a dick. Snotty and above it all, like his shit slid out in perfume baggies. People in town thought so too. Duncan McCauley was spreading rumors about him being bad luck because of his broken knee and Frank Motor's stroke. Duncan was a loser, but April had felt some glee. She resented the new owners for the sneaky back-channel way they got her house in foreclosure, swooping in like buzzards. If Carl hadn't been her father's friend, she would have pushed for a higher price. Her brother Mark told her not to be stupid, but she didn't listen and later on felt exploited. As payback, she left the house in the most disgusting condition possible. She felt a little bad about it now, sitting next to Claire. But fuck it, it was done.
Thank you. Why did you choose to focus on women and in specific to women who are in the middle of their life?
Oh, because I really feel like society has a tendency to diminish us. First of all, I think women are expected in general to have certain roles or portray a certain type of veneer, which is attractiveness and femininity, and once you get past a certain age, your market value seems to go down in terms of most societies. So it kind of annoyed me because I know for a fact that women over 40 are the main demographic of readers. So for me, I just was like, I want to write about women that I can at least relate to. They're not like me at all, but they are aspects of women of a certain age that I I'm definitely familiar with. So hopefully, if that's the demographic of readers, I think it's nice for a reader to see someone that, might be familiar to them. Yeah.
So the book has a kind of more than slightly Gothic house, and it has multiple, I would say, cameos of Gothic tropes. Like you have weird smells, you have creaky noises, you have a crooked weather vane that falls off, you have owls, strange shadows, a decrepit pool. Like there's a whole bunch of things that are very Gothic influenced. What made you think of incorporating these Gothic light elements, and what did they do for you?
Well, as a reader, I love Gothic themes. I grew up, with bizarre, completely really effed up Korean folklore. I'd hear as a child stories about the toilet ghost, or like the water ghost. And then I loved reading fairy tales, as a kid. And then as I got older, I loved noir. So Gothic themes have always been sort of something that I'm attracted to tonally. But actually, the first versions of this novel, the house had certain things going on, but it wasn't nearly as creepy as it became in later iterations. And that really is something that some of my early readers started to pick up on, like, this house it's kind of creepy, but you could make it a lot more so. And then, once I went on submission, a lot of the, editors' feedbacks as well were just sort of like, we like the idea of this house being really creepy. So I started layering, more and more on with each iteration. And I think now the house and actually the whole town truly are almost, characters in themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it fits really well with the time period, which is 2008, just after the housing crisis. Yeah. And, I think about like so many empty houses and people rattling around in these strange spaces. It's also like, the same time period as Gone Girl. Like there's just a moment in history that feels ripe for Gothic, like Gothic revival. So did you think of that in terms of the housing crisis? And
yeah, definitely. And not necessarily related to the Gothic tone, but when I started writing the book, it was about 2015. And the repercussions of the recession were really still very evident, especially in rural communities like where I was. You would see a lot of these, vacancy signs on storefronts, et cetera. And at the time that I also was writing it, I myself was sort of transient because I used to be a clothing designer, in New York City. And I left in 2014. Towards the end of 2014 to try to pursue writing. So I was kind of bopping around, and even though I had access, thankfully, to a lot of different homes of family and friends, I didn't have, any more like my own home. So the idea of home and sort of like future security, financial security was definitely present.
Yeah, there's a permeating sense of instability and fragility throughout the course of the novel that I think creates this sort of tension that helps to sustain the Gothic elements and also helps to sustain the relationships between these three women. But one of the tensions is also about class. So how did you think about the way that you have three, women who represent three very different classes? Claire sort of being a Manhattan lawyer who is somewhat downwardly mobile, April, who is definitely working class, and Anna, who is almost removed from class because she's part of this religious sect, like fundamentalist, like proto-Christian, Judaic root, like they celebrate, Shabbat.
Yeah. Well, because the area that I was in, I observed, it was really interesting because it was such a very small kind of insular community, but a lot of different representations of class were there, at least. Class, there were financiers, and then, more blue-collar people like carpenters and farmers. There were artists and lawyers. So it was interesting because, frankly, the area that I stayed in, they were very diverse except racially. It was fairly white. But in terms of just all the other like political or cultural types of affiliations, I noticed that it was so interesting to me that people seem to accept one another and get along and commune with each other and accept their differences, whereas I had always grown up in urban cities. And I think my experience, I used to live in New York. I grew up in LA. I feel like in cities, bigger cities, there's room enough to avoid people who are not like you, whereas in a small town, it's really like you have to. So that interested me.
Which is actually kind of ironic because there's so much more space in a place like, the Catskills. Like you have literally more physical room, and yet in a place like New York, it's pretty easy to just be in your own little
bubble.
Milieu.
Yeah. So I like the idea of, I observe, my experience of it was that it was incredibly harmonious, but naturally as a fiction writer, you look for the tension or potential, conflict. And so I thought, how do I make these people unhappy?
Like that is one of the great joys of being a writer, is that you get to torture people. Sometimes, sometimes literally. Which is, my bag. But
I don't go as far as you there.
So since we're getting a little bit into the realm of craft, I would describe Upcountry's narrative as braided, kind of like a braided essay where you bring together different strands to make a whole fabric. And that kind of goes along with your, personal history in clothing too. I'm just wondering, like, in interweaving the three main female characters to build your book's narrative, what challenges did that choice bring to you?
Oh, God, how much time do you have? So this is my first novel, and I actually started it. The first chapter I thought would be a standalone short story. But then a friend of mine, an early reader, said this could be a novel, and he liked the character of Claire, Chelsea, and April. And
I really came to like April a lot.
Yeah.
I definitely warmed up to her.
We could be palsies with April. But
I would share a turkey sandwich with April.
Yeah, that's good to know. But in a weird way, so because I was used to writing stories, I naturally kind of started skipping POVs. I would write from one character and then another character. And then Anna also initially was not as important, a third, but then she became an important third. So there were challenges because you just have to balance, if you know that these are your three protagonists, like how much space do they have, in the story. And also, I think it's fairly plot driven, but I always knew, and I'm not going to give away spoilers, but I always knew that what April's relationship to the house, ends up, that would be the resolution. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. So, let's say after 7 chapters, I kind of knew, okay, it's got to start wrapping up. How? And then literally, really, this is one of those things, and there are some writers in here, in this audience, but the biggest joy, I think, of writing sometimes is when you're just really in the flow and you're in the tone of it, and it is like magic. Something happens and you get the answer, and that happened. And the very, very end of this novel, like, that happened, and I knew. So thank God.
Well, one of you bring that up, and it's kind of interesting because one of the major themes in the novel is who is lucky and who is unlucky, and how does luck shift over the course of the 270 pages, 320 pages?
Like maybe 275.
275
pages.
pages.
I have the right here.
Yeah. So like, how does the luck, move kind of like water, which is also another. You have a water feature in the novel. So how do you think of luck in terms of writing, in terms of the novel as a whole, and what does that shifting change of luck mean to you?
I'm really glad you brought up luck, because the concept of luck and fate are so abstract in a way, and yet it is such an important element in life. And it's the one thing that we have no control over, but it can truly make or break a person's life. So I don't know. I've always been interested in it as a concept. I don't know why I decided to incorporate it so much in this particular novel, but it's always been something as a person and as a writer that I'm really fascinated by, because it's people don't really talk about it. There's no science behind luck or fate. There's no way to analyze it, but it's so important in everyone's lives. And in the novel, there's certainly some people get their share of bad luck, but certain things happen that are, quote, good. And I'm also fascinated by the idea of one person's misfortune being someone else's, good fortune, like how that works as well. And that happens in this novel too.
Yeah. So you have mentioned a little bit about the publishing history. And I mean, our books have a lot in common, including the fact that they center on women of a certain age, that there is a sense of people kind of out of place in one way or another. The 2008 fallout of finances are big in both of our books. But also our publishing history, we were published both by Unnamed, but also the kind of rejections that we got. So can you talk a little bit about luck and publishing history?
Yeah. You need it, It's I know with you, once you had your book, and it was during the pandemic when you released yours, and then all of a sudden through Book Talk, it it just kind of took off. So that'd be nice. But for me, it just
#Upcountry.
It took a long. I don't think it. Getting an agent wasn't that hard. It took about 8 months, and this was just before the pandemic, I think in late 2018, 2019. But then when we went out on submission, it was the summer of 2019, and then the pandemic hit. But I can't, I think, entirely blame it on the pandemic, because it had been on submission before. And I think one of the challenges, first of all, it's hard as a debut author. You have no history. Publishers are sort of taking a chance on you. It's not as hard for fiction writers as it is for nonfiction, but, what kind of platform do I have? It's sort of minimal. So there's that. And I think because my book doesn't fall neatly into certain genres, that was also a challenge. And you mentioned that for yourself as well. So, but I noticed both in the cases of getting an agent and then also finally a publisher. And I say this to anyone out there struggling, it just takes the one. It takes one person to say, I'm actually really interested. And then everyone else kind of who've, had your manuscript in the slush pile for a while, suddenly when you say, oh, by the way, I have someone who's seriously interested, they will also start to take you more seriously. So,
Yeah, it's a lot like stripping in that. I mean, you can be walking around a room, and until somebody sees you actually getting money in your hand or on your thigh, it's like nobody has any.
Or go to like a shoe sale, right?
Writing, it's like stripping. Okay. So I have some rapid fire questions for you.
All right.
Which is more Gothic, the Catskills or NOLA?
Oh, God.
I didn't say they were going to be easy.
No, I'm going to have to go with NOLA. Everything, it's just so haunted there and, old and the history and the architecture and, yeah.
Okay. Swimming pool or swimming hole?
Swimming hole.
Yeah. I am also team swimming hole, although then I think of, because I grew up in Vermont and we have a lot of swimming holes, and then I think about the time I got out of a swimming hole and was covered in leeches.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, to be clear, a clean swimming hole.
I mean, I think they were very clean leeches. Okay. Oh, sorry. I set a little alarm for myself so that I would do this on time. Okay. Beer, wine, scotch, or Sazerac?
Oh, scotch. Because I had a shot, before I did this.
Okay. Fuck, marry, kill. Sebastian the artist, Eli the hot occasional criminal, and Frank the old handyman with the disconcerting young man's body.
Jesus. I have to kill Sebastian, that's for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Fuck would be Eli. So I guess I end up marrying Frank.
See, I like Sebastian must die.
So we're on
there. Yeah. But I would fuck Frank.
Really?
Yeah, and I would marry Eli, the hot criminal.
Girl, you like a challenge.
He sounds really handsome, and I like somebody to look at. Like that's very important to me.
Hold on, yeah.
Like in a marriage, I'm just saying I like a younger man, and I like somebody to look at. Okay. Which cult would you consider joining? Scientology, Nexium, Rajneeshis, or Amway?
Since I don't know anything about Amway, but
it's a multi-level marketing thing where like they sell cleaning products and vitamins, and sometimes the cleaning products are vitamins and vice versa.
Oh shit! Okay, well I don't want that. Let's go with Nexium. Just brand
get the brand.
Yeah.
Get the brand. All right, cool. So we're gonna open it up to questions, unless there's anything you want to ask me.
No.
Okay, good. All right. So, questions.
Anyone have a question?
Yes.
I have a question.
Hey, Eric.
About the so this is lovely. I had a question about the braiding of the story, of the narrative. Like we start with Claire in the house, we end with April in the house, and you.
Spoilers.
And you kind of go out from there, and then you bring the characters together, you push them apart, you bring them together, you push them apart. Did you plot all of that? Is it like it just seemed like so careful, and did you know like, oh, I have to bring this back in,
Okay, I'm going to repeat that for our live stream people. All right, so the question is about braiding and the three women's point of view and how the narrative pushes them together and then spreads them apart and then pushes them together and spreads them apart. And did you plot that, or did it just happen like, Athena from the brow of Zeus?
I think it was a little combination of both. I I like the fact that actually, so all three women in this novel, although they're connected by the house and by certain events, they're very different. And they're not even necessarily friends, with each other. And especially the dynamic between Claire and April, because it starts out really antagonistic, because April is forced to sell her house in foreclosure to Claire. So naturally there's resentment. And I like the idea of this kind of push-pull, tension, where two women who are really different from each other might start to recognize, oh, but we have some commonality. I don't have to like this person, but there's something about them that I recognize. So I always, at least between April and Claire, I wanted to keep that tension. And yeah, I don't really plot and again, I've written actually a second novel, which I thought would be easier than the first one. It wasn't. So you learn new things, but with Upcountry,
Unless you're Colleen Hoover.
yeah, we should all learn her lesson. I think that I kind of tend to write to a certain point, and then the most that I will plot is maybe I'll write little snippets of scenes on index cards, and sometimes kind of just move them around, and it's almost like little fairy tale breadcrumbs, to lead me to a certain way, but it doesn't always end up that I'll take that path.
Okay.
Anyone?
Yes.
Did your training in fashion make you more aware of what the characters are wearing in their scenes, like even the skinny jeans and the black tank top?
For live stream, did your training in fashion make you more aware of the clothing on your characters?
No. There's very little fashion in this novel. It was more that I'm aware of, obviously how Mennonites and Amish, and I think there are several cults that sort of adopt an old world kind of, presentation. And I definitely wanted that with this group that I call the Eternals in the novel, because I think when someone actually looks different, it makes them even much more identifiable as an outsider.
I have a quick question. How much research did you do into religious cults in writing this?
A little, not a whole. I did. The Eternals are sort of loosely based on an actual group that I encountered in the Catskills, but there are so many, there are a lot of cults, and I had to do a little bit of research on the Moonies because I referenced them in the novel. Anna, the Korean American younger adoptee, her adoptive parents were initially part of the Moonies. So, and that was super fascinating. And obviously, Reverend Moon was Korean, so it's how could my people do that? But yeah.
Okay.
I guess sort of on that same theme, what drew you to writing about that kind of character? You talked a lot about Claire and April, but what about Anna was so interesting and sort of writing about a character embedded in a cult?
So what drew you to writing Anna, a character who is embedded in a fundamentalist cult?
Well, I think before the character of Anna, it was more the cult that I observed in real life. They were truly interesting to me. So I wanted someone in the book to be representative of that group. But actually, her character started out not as, present or important as the other two. And my first drafts, actually, she was white. But as I was querying, I kind of felt, I don't know, you never know when you query, I got a lot of initial interest, but it sort of never, resulted in an offer of representation. So frankly, I thought, I wonder if it's because my name is so obviously Asian, that people who are reading this novel are looking for the Asian character and she's not there. And almost cynically, I said to myself, I'm going to make one of these characters Asian. And the one that made most sense for me was Anna, because she's very unworldly, and it would make the combination of her being not only a person of color in this very white community, but also a part of this cult would make her that much more, sort of an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, pink shirt,
Yeah.
possible cape.
Hello. So most poets will tell you that the poem is never finished. Now, as a fiction writer, do you feel that the book is finished?
Okay, most poets will tell you the poem is never finished. As a fiction writer, are you finished?
Oh, hell yes. Yeah. My part of it is finished. It would be lovely if it got adapted somehow in a different form. But
Who would you see playing the 3 main characters?
okay, I know this because I've thought about this. Claire, my dream would be Carrie Coons. I don't know if people know who she is, but she was brilliant in The Leftovers. I absolutely love her because she's got that sort of uptight but really fiercely intelligent vibe. April, Reese Witherspoon, if you're out there.
Her sharp little chin.
Yeah, or like, Amy Adams. And Anna, that one's a little harder because I can't remember her name, but if anyone ever saw that movie Minari, which came out about 2 years ago, the woman who played the wife, there, I like her vibe. She's very quiet, but there's a like a power, in her presence. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Could you talk a little bit about the creative process? Did you get up every day, say, I'm writing 50 pages today?
50.
50?
That's cute.
Like, how hard could that be? There are also, like, how did you get to these 3 characters? There's so many, in New York there are so many characters. And how did you manage to pull all these 3 characters together? Did you have like 20 characters and say, all right, these 3 work together, these don't, and push them off the table? What was...
Okay, so the question is about craft. First of all, do you get up every day and say, I'm going to write 50 pages? And second of all, how did you winnow down your potential number of characters to these 3, and then the ancillary men?
Okay, so I do not write 50 pages every day. When a good day for me, because I'm a really slow writer, is 500 words. And that's slow, but if I have a good 500 words, I'm happy, because everyone writes differently. Some people do really quick first drafts. I'm not like that. Anyone who knows me probably is not surprised by my personality being somewhat type A. It's so hard to write that if the sentences, aren't satisfactory to me, I don't want to go on. So there's that factor, but also when you bring up the idea of characters spinning out, as a first-time novelist, that was one of the challenges, because I did start writing certain, characters, and I realized, like, pretty early on, like maybe 20,000 words in, like, especially in a town where there's so many characters, how do I not spin out? This has to be reined in a little bit.
How do you not go full Thornton Wilder?
Yeah, that was just trial and error. Yeah.
Yes.
You're taking this tour to Hudson on Monday. How does it feel taking this book to, I guess it's fictional home?
Okay, so you're going to Hudson on Monday. How does it feel to bring this book home?
I'm super excited to go to Hudson. Yeah. I mean, the community where I actually stayed in that inspired the novel is not Hudson is mentioned, obviously, in the section that I read, but the area that I stayed in was more like half an hour inland towards Durham. So yeah, I'm excited to meet the people and see them again, that I got to know really well over there. Yeah.
Any other burning questions? Okay, I have one. What's the next novel?
Ooh. The next novel is really different. It's crazy. It's a dystopian novel that takes place about 10 years in the future, and it's a Los Angeles where Korean plastic surgery, in particular, has just taken off, and it involves a media conglomerate hiring a young Korean journalist to undergo extreme, plastic surgery. There's a feminist terrorist group.
Nice.
And it's sort of an eco, climate type of novel, and it ends with reproductive cloning. So, yeah, it's really different and crazy.
Well, chop, chop. Let's get going, 'cause I want to read it. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was a delight. And everybody get your copy and get it signed and read it, and then hashtag Upcountry on
Thank
all
you
your
all.
favorite media sites.
Thank you everyone so much for coming. Thank you I didn't have to give you guys a single signal back there. That was amazing. So, thank you that was amazing too for that. A reminder, if you're still on the YouTube live stream, you can buy through the link in the description. If you're here with us, you can buy at the register. Chinsen is going to be signing. My coworkers are going to point right now to where she will be signing. So she can hang out with you after. I promise we just love to get the signing going. Please make sure to grab all of your belongings. We also start folding the chairs very quickly. And because we love having you here, and we also love everyone getting to hang out and then go home. Yes. Yeah, so don't forget, we've got books. Thank you for coming. Have a great night.
Sorry, one quick thing. Any of my friends who want to hang out after, stick around and we'll figure out somewhere around here to go. Okay.
Cool. Pass that back to you.
Was that good? Yeah. Good. I'm glad. Didn't feel